I am Milo Denison.
And I'm Kev Bamboo, and this is Rip It Up Reviews.
Rip It Up Reviews covers cult movies, specially curated by your regular hosts of Rip It Up Again.
Yeah, and in tonight's review, we'll be taking a look at the 1973 B-movie turned cult phenomenon. Is that right? Phenomenon? Horror High, yeah. A movie that's going to celebrate its half centenary next year. Can you believe that? Starring as well, lead actor and brilliant guest on Rip It Up Again, Pat Cardi, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, let's crack on with the review. What's your overall take on Horror High?
The thing with Horror High, so it stars our good friend Pat Cardi, who is an awesome person. So our take on this film, at least mine, might be a little distorted because of that, but it does have a lot of things that make a B movie classic, because it has the character played by Pat, who is this picked on nerdy kid in school and cares about his experiments, and then does something that kind of gives him a Jekyll, Mr. Hyde moment where he kind of turns into this badass killer thing and takes revenge upon people that do bad things to him. So it has all the makings for a proper B movie cult classic. And I do think, considering that they probably had a pretty low budget and not necessarily maybe not the best crew. I don't know what kind of experience the whole crew had. I don't want to knock on them. Maybe they were great, but working within the confines that they had, I think they did do a decent job of shooting it. So Pat plays this character, and I don't really feel like we need to explain the plot of the movie too much, because it's a very typical B movie of him taking revenge upon the people that wronged him in some way. He's got a love interest who, for some bizarre reason likes him, and you got to follow it there to the end, I guess.
Bit of a hussy.
Yeah, exactly.
Got one fella on the go. She's got Johnny Football Hero on the go, and then she's got, then she's like, I kind of fancy a bit of the nerd as well,
Yeah, kind of get a little nerd on the side there.
Nice. It's like today, everyone has, the side chick, but she was well ahead of the time. She's like, no, I'm having my side nerd. It's like
terrible variety. Go jock on one side, nerd on the other.
So I think that's the character of Robin, isn't it? I think who plays the kind of the love interest, or the nearly love interest for poor old Vernon. To be honest, I like the movie. As I say, I think we might be slightly or subconsciously clouded in our open opinions because we've done with Pat. But obviously, like you said, Pat, absolutely great guy. It was one of his, what he thought was going to be one of his breakthrough kind of movies, and then realised, oh damn, I'm on a B movie, not a big production. So we know that the background story to that it wasn't what it seemed, in terms of production. But I kind of really like some of the audio of the film, and like you said, there's a moral. It's a basic moral element to the story. It's not overly fleshed out. It's just a B movie horror. There's not much to it at all. But I will touch quickly on the audio, and some of the sound effects are good as well, which we'll touch on later. Like some of those little kind of influence sound effects that kind of come in, and they're typical of your horror movie, and they're trying to replicate those things. But there is there's a part in the film where there's a scene that's meant to be suspenseful, and everything's set for it to be suspenseful, but then the music's like a 1970s porno, and it's like boom,
dude,
I'm like, it's like the funk. What?
We totally said that when we were watching it. Yeah. We're like, this is like porn music. What's with this porn music?
Some dude's just gonna come on. You're just gonna hear, the zip's gonna go. You're gonna get the any whistle's gonna.
Yep. You're waiting for the teacher. We were joking. There's a scene with the English teacher, and she calls him into her office, and she's like, "Come into my office," and she's lecturing him, and we're totally bow wow. Now get on your knees, Pat Cardi. Exactly. I'm gonna lift up
Yeah,
my
because
skirt.
she's a complete battle axe. So you're expecting this kind of whole flip of like, yeah, you're gonna give me an F, are you,
Uh-huh.
Mrs. Whatever name is Baddensdale? I don't know. I just made it up. But
Miss
she was
Grindstaff.
Grindstaff.
Yeah,
Grindstaff. I mean,
grind.
Christ, the name.
Yeah,
Yeah,
give me
I'm
some
sure she was about to
grinds.
grind. She was about to grind the staff. Yeah, give me an F, are you, bitch? Yeah, okay. But yeah, that was the first thing. One of the first. Other than like the opening music's great. Like it's like just this nice kind of like dreamy music, and you've got Vernon on there, on his bike. But then it just flips to this every time. There's like a sudden like moment. Instead of it being suspense, it's just like boom chicka wah, and it's like. But yeah, like I said, it's morally okay, but yeah, there's lots of questionable things that are not necessarily even relating to the acting, but more to kind of the edit and all the I'd say more on the post production side. But
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. Well, we'll get into some of that
next?
stuff.
Definitely.
So we've joked around some of the scenes a little bit. What's your favorite scene from the film, Kev?
Okay, so I mean, I didn't think this was going to be as difficult as it was, and then I kind of struggled to find some favourites because obviously nothing massively stands out. And I think there's elements there. There's the near retribution that obviously like Vernon gets. It's like the ongoing developing theme of revenge, and then you've got like the near romance with Robin that never fully happens. Like she's already suddenly like, oh, I really like you. She's basically like kind of cock teases him. And then like, oh, but I've just got to go and see my boyfriend now for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, okay then. Oh, like, so he's always continually disappointed. And you're just feeling sorry for Vernon. So, but I think the actual scene, I think it's that first point. It's when the janitor, so Mr. What's his name?
Mr. Greggs.
Mr. Greggs, okay. Probably looks like he's had too many Greggs, but there wasn't a Greggs in the UK back then. But had too much. But yeah, when the janitor basically he forces Vernon to drink the potion that he's been working on that he's nearly completed, but obviously it's not quite there yet. And then he turns into the monster the first time, but it's also the scene almost like merged and follows straight away with that. It's in the morning when it's his realization that he is the actual monster. Vernon's like, oh damn, what have I done? Because obviously he's just this kid who's very hard working and stuff. So for me, it's that initial moment that he discovers that he's the monster. So yeah, how about yourself?
Yeah, for me, I really liked the murdering the coach scene.
Yeah.
Because the way they set it up was there were cops there at one point, and so you're getting this kind of like, oh, it's these guys, and so the coach thinks it's them again, but then maybe it's Vernon. He's got his stick thingy, his bat thingy, but then Vernon still gets him and everything, and just like the way it was done was just really nice. And just very cheesily done with the with him like picking the coach up and throwing him.
Yeah.
It looks so fake.
But yeah, because the dude's like like triple the size of Vernon as well.
Yeah,
it's just like
Yep. And just like how it plays out is so disbelievable, but it's fun. And then when he kills him with the cleats, like jumping up and down on him and then how he manages to have time to then hear the cops coming, get him from the bleachers to hang him up so that he's hanging in the room. So like the time doesn't work. And so since the scene as a whole is so disbelievable, yet fun, I like it. But it was my favorite thing, Milo. Yeah, totally. It was my favorite kill from the film. Was that one? So I decided to put it as my favorite scene.
Because I think is that like the third? I think it's the third or fourth kill because he's killed.
I think that's the third kill.
It's the janitor, the teacher,
and then
janitor, English teacher,
and then coach.
And coach.
Yeah,
and then obviously, unfortunately, I think Robin as well gets the.
Yep.
Absolutely. Sorry, viewers, if you haven't watched in nearly 50 years. Too bad you. Yeah. But no, I totally agree. It's like kind of, I think that's probably if anyone does watch it after viewing this on the off chance, is to kind of basically you've got to take it as a bit of fun. Actually, like if you try and analyze it as an actual horror movie or a cult horror movie, even it's not going to work. You've got to purely just enjoy it like you would a slasher, I suppose. But it isn't even a slasher, is it? Because there's no real gore. I suppose you could probably introduce, in some respects,
there's a little bit, but not.
Could probably watch it because it's kind of it's easy enough to watch and it's fun enough. And maybe they were marketing it to that kind of like younger teens to the very young adult kind of area to kind of get them invested in kind of horror movies, but it was still obviously incredibly low budget. So obviously favorite scene. So this is going to be a bit of a difficult one in some ways, but least favorite scene, Milo.
So least favorite for me was when the jocks are picking on him in the locker room. And the reason, I know they needed the scene because of course they've got the typical jocks, but it was too stereotypical and it was too long. So basically the scene is he's in there, he's got his notebook there with all his notes.
He's minding his own business, really.
Exactly. Yet for some reason he's reading this in the locker room, by the way, like, why does he even have it out? So the group of jocks come in and they take it from him and they tear pages out, they hold it over his head and then they throw it back and forth. And he's like, give it to me, and running back and forth. And it was just like, so cliche even for when this film was made, and it was just too long because it was just all these shots of like throws it over here and then a shot of throwing it over and then a shot, and it was just, you could have cut that scene in half.
And some I think there's like some slow, there's like a couple of slow-mo or slightly
exactly. Yep, just the way it was edited together.
If anything they get right there is like there's actually some, well, it's not dramatic, but it seems to it standalone from the rest of the film. There's actually a little bit of dramatic music in there.
It wasn't
and you're like, oh, this is the music that you should have used kind of, even if you use the same music, use that all the way through, learn from learn from your John Carpenters and stuff like that, where it's like, you can use one small piece of music and just use that throughout every time.
Use it throughout,
But
yeah, totally. You?
So I mean, obviously, we're both not. I totally agree. By the way, it's just it's quite drawn out scene, really. But you and I are both obviously not fans of anything when animals kind of get killed in movies, as we've established before. But I think it's kind of a toss-up between the kind of, well, you never really know whether the janitor kills Vernon's guinea pig, but he kind of has, because he ends up, when obviously Bozeman comes and says, oh, and Vernon, another thing, we found some bones in the drum, and it just happened to be, as well as the cat, now the guinea pig. But I think it's a toss-up between the guinea pig death and the cat's death as well, because obviously any animal death is never great. And is it necessary in the whole plot? Like, there's no real plot for them other than that, cat primarily would kill a smaller animal in nature, but it's in a cage. There's no real reason other than that it's linked to obviously Mr. Griggs, and he's a weirdo, and so that, go figure, his cat's gonna be nasty piece of work as well, possibly. But yeah, I'm not so much that. And then I think also I struggle with the ending again a little bit. It's a little bit, it seems rushed, and then it's like, oh yeah, how do we give these, what we obviously know is like, how do we give these NFL dudes a role in the movie?
Totally. These guys funded the film and they want to have a part in it. So
they're like, hey, where's our part in the film?
Throw this in
we'll just chuck them in standing around at the end, kind of just like,
yeah, that works.
So, but yeah, either the animal kills, as it were, even though we know they're not real, and they most definitely probably wouldn't have been in this movie.
No.
Wouldn't be able to afford the kind of the removal charges or whatever. So yeah, either the animal deaths or obviously the investor's role at the end. It's a bit of a kind of a forgotten but important point that they needed to put in.
Makes sense. All right. Best actor.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's got to be your lead or your support, basically, hasn't it? Vernon by, Cardi, or Bozeman by the great, obviously, Austin Stoker, who went on to obviously then, not long after film, Assault on Precinct 13 with, that was John Carpenter, I think, wasn't it? Yeah. Those two, although I will say, I'm not that impressed with Stoker in this movie, but I think that's a script issue. I don't think it's a Stoker issue. I think it's a writing issue. But I think Pat actually deals with the script quite well compared, like what he has to deliver, and he's in it. There's a lot of dialogue actually for Pat in there, to be honest. Like, you think some lead actors, they'll be the main actor in there, but they don't necessarily have lots. They might have one scene where they've got a monologue or they've got a heavy speech with somebody, but they don't often, like, nearly every scene that he's in, he's got, quite a bit of dialogue with people. So I imagine that was quite difficult to kind of, one, learn that, and then the realization that the movie is actually not that great. And then you've still got to professionally go through with it. And bear in mind that, Cardi was 21, 22, whatever, at that age. So a young, still a young actor, a lot to kind of, yeah. So for me, actually, on base, I did kind of have them both too, but I think I'm basing that on Stoker, the actor he became, rather than in this movie.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think Assault on Precinct 13 was a good move for him. And actually, I would like to have seen maybe Pat Cardi in that movie. Like, it would have been interesting if there was a role for him in there, because that would have been interesting to see how they worked in another dynamic, in something with a slightly better script. But yeah, Vernon, obviously Pat Cardi, stand out as the kind of excitable teenager, I suppose, because that's what he is, really. He's young, he's not overly impressionable, he's hardworking. Like I say, he's the token nerd in the movie. Obviously, he's excitable with the prospect of, bagging, the hottie, Robin or whatever. And yeah, I like the care and attention that he has throughout. And that kind of holds the movie together a little bit. But I'll save the other bit for next. So what about
Pat's a good answer, because he has to carry the whole film, and he's doing it while trying to be convincing of, like, knowing that it's a pretty weak script. But I'm going to go for somebody different for mine. I'm going to go Jeff Alexander, who played Mr. Griggs, the janitor.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Have you ever seen Sling Blade with Billy Bob Thornton?
Oh God.
And it's like, some people call it and I call it a sling blade. That character. Basically, watch a clip. Watch a sling blade clip as soon as we get done there.
Folks call it a sling blade. I call it a kaiser blade. Just got a long wood handle.
He is totally Mr. Griggs. So what I'm saying it now. Billy Bob Thornton stole sling blade from Horror High, copying Mr. Griggs. And if Billy Bob Thornton is going to steal your performance and make an Academy Award-winning film out of it, you deserve to be Best Actor in Horror High.
I'm warning you, boy. You stay away from my cat, you understand?
Now that totally kiboshes mine, because you know what I'm going to say. But now I've got that information. I mean, obviously, I don't think I've seen that film, but for some reason, any Billy Bob Thornton movie kind of just rings a bell. So I may well have seen it on, like, one of the free-to-air channels and just been like, one evening, like 1 a.m. or something stupid like that. But yeah, for me, in fact, it's not the janitor, but I did want to say the janitor at first, because I just like, again, like everything, it's all a bit too kind of cliched, it's like, you got the token nerd, you got the token weird janitor, you got
token jock, token
bully,
Yep, exactly.
And so it's just a bit, but the thing is, he actually does play quite a convincing weirdo, because you are like, that dude's just messed up, it's like they've just given him a sweeping brush and just been like, He's got this weird
and they set it up so it's like you don't feel bad for anybody that Vernon kills, because it's like, Jenner's a dick.
Jenner's a weirdo. He's probably like just run off to the closet every evening and like, knocked one out or something. It's like, he looks grubby, So yeah, he's actually, all of the cast is quite convincing for the stereotypical. So he was not bad, but for me, and it's like you were saying with your worst scene with all the bullies and the jocks, for me, it's Vernon's main bully, Roger, which is obviously Robin's boyfriend. I just think it's more the actual scene, although it's like meant to be token bully. He just comes across as a bit of a bitch, to be honest. And
worst actor, you're saying, is him.
Yeah, worse, because it doesn't come across as like an actual convincing bully. It's just like, it's more of like a little bit of a bitch, like, oh, hey Vernon, what are you doing in here? It's like, oh, fuck off. That's the kind of thing, even if you was a nerd, you'd just be like, oh God, not this guy again. It's just leave it out. And he goes on to kind of like pushes him down and stuff. But Vernon actually does stand up for himself at a point. He goes to stand up, but he's obviously he's not strong enough. But I don't think he's that great a bully. So I'm just not convinced by the performance of that actor. Again, could be a script issue, and a direction issue, and maybe lots of other combined issues. But yeah, my worst actor would be.
I mean, you could be right. He didn't do a whole lot after this, only a couple more films. But you never know. But it's hard to know, because it could have been at the direction, because like you said, we know Austin Stoker is a talented performer. Yeah. But in this, he's definitely not that great. So
it'd be interesting to know what he thought about, the movie, because we know what Pat's thoughts of the movie and the whole setup and all the problems behind it. So it'd be interesting, someone, Austin, who's a little bit more of an established actor in terms of, he'd been in stuff with so he'd been, not been in Planet of the Apes yet, had he? I don't think
he was in Planet of the Apes. Yep.
Yeah, but had he been in it before? Had a Horror High been? I'm thinking of timelines, because I know it goes Horror High.
I think he did Horror High first, then Planet of the Apes,
and then Assault on Precinct 13. Yeah.
I think I could be wrong on that, but
I know Horror High is 73.
Okay, we have the internet directly in front of us. Yeah, let's just look it up.
Precinct 13, 76. So unless, so it's Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, so Horror High, Planet of the Apes, Precinct 13 is 76.
Right, so that's wedged in between. Okay, so they did go from that movie essentially, kind of, into Planet of the Apes
pretty quickly, it looks like.
Yeah. Anyway, my worst actor there, like I say, is the bully Roger, because, as you say, not many credits after. Yeah,
good choice. I'm going to go, unfortunately, for Miss Rosie Holotek, the girl, Robin Jones. So she was just so fake. And like, I didn't really believe that she liked Vernon or Roger, or like, she was basically put in the film because like, well, we need the female character, and so you'll do it. And there you go. Congratulations. I was honestly thinking about doing Austin Stoker.
Oh yeah.
But I think that'd be pretty harsh to say like the most talented one gets the worst performance vote.
For me, on Austin, it is that every time, you just nearly every. But again, that's a script issue. Every sentence, it's just like,
it's just
and one other thing, Vernon.
Yeah,
that's the same as that.
And the thing is, you could tell he probably just kind of phoned it in. Like, I'm getting paid to do this. I'm going to come. I'm going to say my lines. I'm going to go home. And so I think that kind of contributes to it as well. Why he kind of deserves that the award for worst performance.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a toss up between him and Rosie.
But yeah, I think it would be harsh on. I'd say it's a little bit harsh.
So am I harsh on him or harsh on her?
Harsh on Austin.
Like, don't be harsh on Austin Stoker, man. He'll track you down.
Yeah, it'd be like, man, what are you guys playing at? Literally, but
Yep.
sorry about that, Austin Stoker, but you're obviously clearly a fantastic actor, but not in this.
Yeah, sorry. I am a fan, Austin. But again, not in this. All right. Well, let's go into then directing. So this was directed by Larry and Stouffer. If you directed or shot it, how would you do it differently? What would you do?
Well, Larry. And as we've established before, it's easy to obviously criticize someone, and then when you've not done the work, in the capacity. But I mean, I've no idea how many movies Larry had done before this. I'm sure Milo's going to bring up the list of 20
looking it up right
budget
films. He did one film. He directed one film prior to this.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So in fact, no. So that's even worse then, isn't it? Because it's like, if you've learned lessons, how bad is that film?
Yeah.
The one he directed before. I mean,
and he did not do any after this. So he directed 2 films, one before this and then this one.
So yeah, Larry, what would I do differently? Yeah. Well, again, to be honest, I don't think it's all. Obviously, there are problems with direction because, like I say, there's certain parts in there that are just, there's so much stuff that's not believable. Obviously, it's a horror, so nothing's real, but you still have elements and nuances in there that you go, oh, okay, this character is believable, or you can see the director has kind of led and structured it into, this actual movie. Everything's just so choppy, and that goes through from that. And I think it's from the direction, the script, and then the edits. And then I think that's what also, obviously that's your final thing. If you're going to try and cover anything up, at the end, you're going to cover it with your post. And even if you haven't got a particularly big budget, your edit is where you can still edit. You can't, you don't need, all right, yeah, you need money to make it look nice and stuff, but you don't need to do the basics. You don't need a lot of money. So, just transitioning, film, and seamless cuts and things like that. That's the attention to detail, So whoever they got to edit it obviously didn't care for the project. They're just like, yeah, okay, literally snip, 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 paste, bang, oh, there's your movie, crack on. And that's how it appears and it comes across because, yeah, there's so many obvious cuts. There's so many, you can tell when certain parts have been filmed at a different time. You've got different, you can hear different sound. You can just hear that it's like nothing's been cleaned up. It's like a raw version. I think if someone cleaned it up and did it, I mean, there might be a remastered version or whatever.
Yeah, there might be a better edit out there somewhere.
It could be better. They may have stripped all the music away and put in more, because music's a huge thing in film as well. So yeah, I'd have changed, obviously I'd have had a much cleaner edit. I don't think you could, there's not too much of an issue in the direction if you do all the other things quite right. Obviously it's a key thing, but you can kind of, if the rest of the team perform well, but in this, obviously it's like the whole team isn't kind of pulling anywhere and it's like no one really wants to be there. I think I did like some of I mentioned at the beginning, I like some of the establishing shots. I like the opening sequence. I think there's that kind of that dreamy state to it, which is weird because there's never any music like that in the movie again.
That's the only. It's like I wonder if he handed off to his B unit director and was like, "Hey, can you go do this opening shot here?" And I'm riding his bicycle, and the guy's like, "Yeah, here you go." And sure, this is the music you used for that. All right, yeah, whatever.
Oh yeah, but yeah, because it's almost like you're watching a kind of the start to a Marianne Faithfull biopic. That's it's just this dreamy music, boys. I know, oh, life's great, which is good because then that's kind of like you're setting a nice moment, like the surrealism to a horror movie, where something's nice and it's too good to be true. So I get the idea. So I like that, and I like some of the the wider classroom shots and the kind of dollying in and dollying out on those classroom shots. That's quite nice. They're decent. And again, those things don't really cost a lot of money. You're moving a camera one way, you're moving a camera the other way. stabilize it however you want to stabilize it, minimize your noise however you want to minimize your noise. So those aren't too bad, but you can definitely tell that it's low budget, and it really shows through that then the cutting room edit is also very poor. But yeah, you also obviously direction and shots. And
yeah, I agree. I think you hit on all the key ones. The music is by far the worst. It does not go with this film, and it does not create suspense. Yeah, it would be great. You could take this script and the music and then just shoot it as a porno. So keep the music and the exact same dialogue even. Just make it a porno.
Maybe the scenes that they cut out of it were those, those scenes. Like, we've got to get it under an R rating. We've got to get the rating down.
Get this to a PG.
Chop.
Yeah. And yeah, some of the edit choices weren't the best. I think the main thing as the director as well is trying to get believable performances out of your actors. And I don't get the impression that he put as much effort into that as he could have, because it's a cheesy script. He could have tweaked it on set a little bit as well. And I think Pat mentioned that to us as well. Like he made changes to the script as well. And,
he was, but I think, didn't he say that he gave like a bunch of notes over? And like they were just like not really interested.
Yeah, they're like, okay, Pat,
right. Yeah, like, oh yeah, cheers. It's like,
yeah, but I think they did take some of his.
I directed.
Yeah, but I do think he said that they took some into consideration as well, though.
Right.
But he did. But that's the thing. Like, as the director, ideally, you should have worked a lot of that out in advance. But yeah, he just. I think it's a lot of lack of experience, not knowing how to work with actors, and then the edit. You got to fix a lot of that. The edit makes such a huge impact on the final film.
Yeah, I think I struggle with that. Is I just don't understand how you can make that edit so bad. Like, I understand being time limited or whatever, and being like, okay, we've got let's say 2 weeks to edit the whole movie. All right, yeah, there'll be stuff missed, but I still don't know how you get it that bad. Like just running through, if you watch that through, like, yeah, there's my final cut, and you watch that through.
Good enough. Let's get it out there.
I just wouldn't. I'd just be like, no, fuck this. I'm not even putting it out there. Like even, it's like, I wouldn't want, or I'll put it out there. I'll be like, you don't need to credit me now. You don't need to credit me as an editor. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to use a fake name for this one. To check out to my correct name so I can deposit it in my account. But when it comes to putting me in the credits, there's a pseudonym.
Yeah, Jason Zemeckis again.
Yeah.
Hey, this Jason Zemeckis guy gets around.
He does a lot of these B movies, doesn't he?
So I think, Milo, we're going to also talk about, which is kind of difficult on this movie because there's not much, but in the important areas, there should be, and it's the special effects, or any effects, I suppose, really. But give us some insights yourself on like the kind of special effects.
Yeah, I think honestly, considering how much they probably spent on the effects, I think they did a good job. They did a good job of shooting Pat when he was in monster form, in shadows and in the darkness, so you don't really get good visuals on him, so that it helps your mind kind of create what he looks like, because you can kind of tell if they did show him well lit, it would basically just be clearly a bunch of makeup and like hair patches on his arms and nails. So I think they did a good job of shooting it in a way that made it look somewhat believable. And so I actually think they did a pretty good job with the special effects, considering the film itself.
Yeah, putting your kind of budget hat on and going, okay, think of it like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed that there wasn't, like, you kind of touched on it in the makeup part, is that a little disappointed with like kind of morph into the monster, because you don't really ever see him morph into. It's like there's that moment, like let's say when he does the teacher kill, and it's like obviously you see him gulping down his cocktail of unfinished enzyme altering stuff, and then So, I mean, that's great. And it's like, simple stuff. But, I like the smoke bubbling out, the classic, mad scientist stuff. I like all that. But then it then cuts, and then it's like the teacher, and she's stood there, and she's like, oh, well, and there's a really weird cut in there where she's like, oh, and then she suddenly says, oh, like, where are you, Vernon? But it's like, I know she's expected him to be in that extra class, but why does she know that she's randomly wandered into another room? And then she's like, where are you, Vernon?
It's you,
aimlessly said it. It's you, yeah. And I'm like,
it must be you, Vernon.
How do you know that it's Vernon? Until he goes, it's me, I've changed.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, darling, I've changed. Want some monster dick tonight? It's like, boom, chicka, boom, boom.
And the music starts up.
But yeah, and it cuts, and then, like I say, you actually do get that porn funk comes on. There's some nice, sexual hi-hats going. And it's like, then we see the turned Vernon, but I admit I'm the same with you. I do like the good use of shadows, and also lots of heavy breathing to mask whatever. But the only time the only time you get a kind of visual on Vernon as the monster is after his first kill, when he's woke up in the morning. Like I say, that scene that follows, and he goes into the bathroom, and you can see, and he's got it just looks like mud on his face, but he's got the arms, and I think like on his chest a little bit, so you kind of see him it's fine, that is, because he's like, obviously he's morphed nearly fully back into his normal state, but that's the only time I would have liked to have seen a bit more kind of, what does this monster look like?
Yeah.
And it's, got some like sharp fan, you could have done an American, werewolf in London, but without the actual stop motion parts. You could have just gone from that. If they're cutting from teacher porno scene after gulping juice, and then back to Vernon in the shadows, they could have easily had a shadowed, wolf mask or whatever they wanted, if it's like some kind of furry Jekyll and Hyde weirdo, so yeah, that was my disappointment. But I think, like you say, they do well with the budget that's there, so yeah, and they're clever with, like anything, light and shadow, so it's nice that there's someone there that could say, oh, if we shoot it like this, then conceal the thing and create that illusion and mystery of the character. So yeah, I do like that, but there's not really a lot else in the movie the way you can kind of, because there's no real blood kills, there's no need for like kind of bladders and things like that.
Yeah, not a lot. Yeah.
So yeah,
I think we see some like blood on the floor flowing at some point, don't we?
Yeah, and I think with the cat, maybe there was the bit because the cat's on there, but it obviously just looks like a flattened
black
fairy handbag. Yeah, something's like I don't know what they used, but it doesn't even look.
It doesn't look like a cat.
Particularly convincing, but I mean, yeah. But so what's next on the agenda? Moving on.
Character. If you were a character in Horror High, which would it be?
I think anytime it's always good playing weirdos. I think it'd be good to play, Mr. Griggs, and just kind of do that whole kind. It's a bit like kind of when I said in Club Dread, it's like you either want the kind of either cool or super chilled back person. So like DJ Drugs or whatever it was, I think I said in that.
Yeah.
Or you want the super weirdo, so you can really kind of explore the character and the psychology of why they are like that. But in the main, I think, it'd be good to play Vernon's character and maybe like try and see what you could do with that character. He's a token nerd, but see where you can go with his character. And then also, obviously, Bozeman as well. I think you could make him you could flesh him more out. I think he could be more inquisitive and more intuitive as a detective. Like, he doesn't really, it's like, oh, I'll just ask this school kid. It's like that's the only person he's constantly interviewing. He's either got a really, really good sixth sense. It's like, oh, I know this kid's done it already, so I'm just going to ask him. He's my suspect. But then it's like, he takes his word as gospel at the beginning. It's like, oh yeah,
like
you got a point. You got a point
Vernon,
there, didn't he? I didn't think of that. I didn't think that could have been the case. Shit, I'm getting paid $200K a year for this job. It's like,
I'm the most incompetent detective in town.
And you're a school kid. It's like, oh yeah, you definitely, yeah, I'll listen to everything you're saying. And as he goes on, he does develop it a little bit more. And I think as well, I've got to mention this. I love the cut where there's, I think it's after the teacher again. It's after the teacher's been killed, and that's the first time I think Bozeman comes around, and there's a cut, and then a doll's head rolls on the floor.
Oh yeah.
Randomly.
And they're recreating it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like, because there's the drum, and they're like, it's like, yeah, it's meant to be like that shock factor of, oh man, you really scared me there with the surprise doll's head rolling around. Which why is it there? Other than it being,
and it doesn't work because it's a doll's head, and you're like, oh, well, that's a doll's head. Are they trying to? Because your first thought is, are they trying to imply that this is the teacher's head? And then it's like, okay, it's a doll's head. They're redoing it, but like, yeah, it doesn't.
It's like some bizarre little kind of thing that either some guy on set said, yeah, I'm going to chuck that in as like an Easter egg.
Yeah,
that's the only explanation, because there's no. But yeah, the character. Yeah, probably fleshing out Vernon or Bozeman if given the time to be able to do so. But I'd love to play Briggs as well.
All right. So you're looking at it from an acting perspective, like who would you like to play as the character, not necessarily who would you like to be?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, it can be either, because I've gone from the acting point of view.
Well, from an actor's point of view, I definitely would want to be Vernon, just because, I mean, he gets to play like the nerdy kid and the killer, and do the transformation and kind of like have all that fun with the character and stuff. If I were going to be one of the characters, I would be Roger, the jock, because he gets the girl at the beginning and he gets the girl at the end. So, he basically kind of saves the day, and probably goes on to open a used car dealership somewhere, and after he knocks the girl up
with a big, with surrounded by inflatable.
Yeah, and the inflatable
man. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So he's got himself a nice car dealership and a nice little soccer mom and his SUV and all that kind of stuff.
And then years later, when he's forgotten about all his bullying, a resurrected zombie version of Vernon kind of appears on his doorstep, and boom, and that's it. That's the Horror High sequel that's not been made yet. No, because I think they did Return to Horror High.
Yes, but that has nothing to do with this film.
It's got nothing. Yeah, it's got nothing to do with it as well. So it's not even a sequel. It's just like, oh yes, call it this, and then not actually do any link to it at all. Yeah, okay. Well, that's another movie anyway. So yeah, how's about we have kind of touched on it a little bit, because I spoke about some of the shots and the direction, but yeah, so the cinematography and obviously some of the overall shot choices as well. So what do you think about the whole cinematography?
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job with the cinematography. Shooting at night, on film, and getting it lit well enough, and still being able to create the shadows and the light. There are a couple nice shots. I think you hit on it once, that the sequence in the first sequence in the classroom with the English teacher, and they start in on the film that's playing, and the camera dollies down the aisle.
That's right,
yeah. And there's another shot like that at the end as well, when the girl is running in the hallway and stuff, and it starts on a dolly down the hallway. She's kind of coming towards the camera, getting into the rooms, and it's nicely done. So that they go a little overboard with so every time Vernon's in evil mode, they do the tilted camera thing.
Yeah.
And I think they went a bit overboard with it. And it's like, well, this is how we know he's evil, because the camera is tilted.
Because the camera's gone crazy.
Yeah, exactly. The whole sequence is shot like that. So so like I kind of maybe would have liked to see, there's a sequence, and I actually thought about this when they were filming it before when the teacher is there. So this is before he kills the English teacher. So she's in her room. And
grind staff.
Yeah, grind staff. And she walks towards the door, and what would look cool, and they instantly tilt it so we know, okay, Vernon's evil. But what would look nice is if, as they followed her to the door, the camera turned into a tilt to kind of create that transition. So there's shots like that where I would have changed it a little bit. But beyond that, I think they did a pretty damn good job with the cinematography in this film, of the way they shot it overall. Like I can't really fault them too much for it.
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty similar with you on that, because, like you say, bearing in mind that it is incredibly low budget, those operators obviously were like, okay, I mean, I can't imagine that there was really a DOP or anything of sorts, if you know what I mean, although the DOP was probably one of the operators as well, more than likely in this. So I don't know that for certain. I mean, obviously checking out probably would know, but I would imagine that the DOP is, say, the A cam, and then, there might have been I'm sure there was a B cam in there, but they do, when they were deciding obviously on their shot selection, they kind of get it right. I think it would have been nice. I'm going to touch on the tilted cam a bit as well, because I think if they'd done it and it was first person view, that would have worked a little bit more. So it's actually from, Vernon's point of view.
Oh yeah, they didn't really do any first person shots, did they?
Nothing, and it's like you could easily, especially if you're saying, well, that's what we need.
Yeah,
and we need to save on, special effects. So you could have had a set of furry arms.
Yeah.
All right, look cheesy, but I mean, the movie is not the bar's not dropping anymore, in that respect. So you could easily have just gone, okay, let's just stick some arms or something and have like this first person view, tilted, bit of blur or something, just kind of, defocus or off focus or whatever, and just not quite pull to the focus, and then come through, like you say, come through the door and actually have it as Vernon kind of getting closer, because you've got the breathing in there, and stuff. So if you've got that on that view of the camera as the monster's getting close to the teacher, and then have a view, because you've got quite a few over the shoulder ones from like the teacher sometimes in different scenes. So the thought process was pretty nailed on. Like it's clear that the people that were actually shooting it had an idea of what they wanted to shoot.
Yeah.
It's just obviously there wasn't really the direction, and a whole lot of other stuff didn't really hold up within the movie. It's like one of those things that it's almost a shame, because it could have been actually, like I say, it's not an absolute terrible flop as sorts, but just a few little bit more attention to detail, and not even needing any more budget, could have made the film, I suppose it's all about how more people are kind of invested in the actual project, and not purely from maybe a financial view, but just a pure wanting to make a movie. So it suffers because of that. I think the lack of attention to detail. But I think that, in terms of cinematography, they actually did care about what they were shooting. So at least they can kind of hold their heads a bit high, or at least 3/4 high, I think, and not horror high. Nice segue. So that'd be my one. I think I did a fairly decent job there. So,
well, let's jump into the overall thoughts and review.
It'd be easy to be really harsh. It'd be so easy to just be like, yeah, this is total rubbish, but it's not rubbish. And if you watch it, like you said, with a bit of fun in mind, and just enjoy the badness of it, and don't take it too seriously, then you will kind of, I mean, I could watch that again, and I wouldn't be watching it going, oh, this is awful or whatever. I'd just be watching it like, this is just a cheesy B horror movie, essentially. I don't know if it quite holds up in the kind of cult sense of a cult horror, but as we established, the acting's not that terrible. It is script errors, and then culminates with a really poor edit, as we've already noticed. So and I said it earlier, a low budget, you can still do the simple things well, and they don't have to cost much money. So, and that's the thing, that's the part that struggles, and that's where, for me, that's where it gets knocked down quite severely in its mark. But then I also do think, and I might have mentioned this when we actually interviewed Pat, I've got a feeling that may well have been intentionally been made as to be a flop. But with all of that and all the other things around it, I think it does have that kind of certain charm to it. Because if you treat it as something funny, and even like the music alone, you kind of, you kind of watching it, you're like, that music just doesn't fit with the movie. Oh, I'm just gonna enjoy this now. It's just a bit of fun. So
why not?
I'm gonna, I'm gonna be quite generous, and I'm gonna give Horror High a 6 out of 10. So yeah, how about yourself, Milo?
Yeah, that's a good rating. So that's the thing. I think if you sit down and just appreciate it for what it is, it's a pretty decent film. Like, you can't compare it to modern films. You can't compare it to anything else. Like, it's just, a light horror film where it's got cheesy moments, clearly cheesy music. But overall, it's not a bad film. And so, boy, do I want to go, I might actually agree with you and go 6 as well. 6 out of 10.
Tied sixes. Yeah,
I think that's a good rating. Cool. I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems about right, because just on measure, like you say, you could easily give it like a 2 or a 3. Mm-hmm. Just if you didn't take any other context to it at all and just go, yeah, this is pants. But yeah, you got to take into account those other things. 6s is. Yeah, because you can't. Yeah,
the thing is, you got to compare it to what it is, what its budget is, when it was made. The category it drops in. You can't compare it to like some major big budget Hollywood production kind of a thing, because then it doesn't work. So
yeah, on measure, I think it gets it.
I think just about. I think that's a good rating.
There, and like you say, it's nearly 50. Yeah, nearly 50 years old.
50 years old. Bet you that makes Pat feel old when he hears that.
Probably does. So I mean, I'm not even 50, so it's like that's neither
before
are you.
Either of us were born. So,
yeah. So it's older than that. We're reviewing it and kind of semi-slating it, and we're not even got the kind of prestige of being old enough to being thought of when it was made and released. So yeah, no, it does. I think it does. It clearly holds a partial place as a cult horror flick. I can't say that hand on heart for myself personally, but I do think there's enough there of a movie and there's enough people obviously that have watched it. I think it is that funny element that kind of puts its status up a touch. And Pat's obviously great in it as well, and he's
Pat is a great guy. So just to support Pat in some way, it's worth watching this film because he deserves it.
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely watch it, and obviously Austin's in there as well. But that role, he definitely needs work on. Austin, like, you should have done better there, mate.
Yeah, we know you can do better, Austin. So
must try harder. So next film review, Milo, what's your choice going to be for the next one?
So for our next film, I'm going, instead of cult horror, I'm going to go cult science fiction. Go with A Boy and His Dog, starring a very young Don Johnson and his dog.
Ooh. A Boy, all right. I'm going to definitely, I've never seen that before, so I'm definitely going to have to watch that.
All right.
But I always look forward to your choices, because I know that they don't necessarily always relate to what we've done, but I'm definitely, I'm definitely going to.
We'll see. We'll see.
See whether it's a cool science fiction movie.
Cool science fiction.
Yeah. Was that? I'm just going to touch on also before we go, obviously on the regular show, on obviously Rip It Up Again. Coming up on there at some point in the future, we've got author and poet Ray Douglas, who will be joining us. He's a fantastic guy. He does a lot of stuff around children's educational work, and he's just incredibly funny guy as well. And he writes those kind of poems that are simple, but even adults can enjoy them. So I think it's got a great blend. So that'll be interesting to get in. So yeah, look forward to that at some point. But yeah,
excellent. Should be great. Looking forward to it.
A boy and his dog sometimes talk to each other.